order a meeting of the North Andover School Committee for January 28th, and we'll start by rising and pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great. So good evening, everyone. I'd like to remind you the meeting is being recorded and broadcast, and please, if you'd be so kind as to silence your mobile devices. We have a cram-packed agenda this evening, and just for the public, we have two, potentially three opportunities for public comment. We're going to open with public comment on any school matter or agenda matter. We have a public hearing scheduled this evening, and then if there is need, we will continue with public hearing, public comment at the end of the full agenda. So I'm going to try to keep things to the schedule, and with that, I'm going to open the floor to any public comment on the agenda or school material, recognizing this is not yet the public hearing on the budget. Was there any public comment? Okay, seeing none. Looks like we are sans our student report this evening. So I'd like to move on to the consent agenda. I'd like to take a motion to approve the meeting minutes from January 14th as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Great. Any comments, corrections? Hearing none. All in favor of approving the minutes as presented in a packet for January 14, say aye. Aye. All opposed? All abstained? Great. 5-0. Thank you. The next item I'd like to move on to is our public hearing for the 2017 budget. And according to our policy and our requirements, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 71, 38.9, the school committee must hold a public hearing on its annual budget. So, as chair, I will be calling the public hearing open at this time. And in accordance with our policies and our procedures, I'd like to first hear if there's any comment from the committee or those on behalf of the committee, and then open comment to the citizens and community. So is there anything from the committee on the budget that needs to be heard at this time?
I would just say, I mean, I've heard from a number of friends and some teachers, and they're very supportive and very excited. So,
okay, great. Any other from committee members? From those representing the committee, anything from the superintendent or the administration?
No.
I know this is later in our agenda anyway.
You've heard already enough from me. I think at this point, probably done hearing from me about it.
Great. So I'd like to open the hearing to anyone from the committee. From the community, starting with citizens of North Andover first, please. And hearing none, I'll open it to any comment on the budget at this time. Any comment at all? Great. Hearing none, I would then move to, actually I don't need to move, I will be closing the public hearing on the North Andover School Committee 2017 budget and move on to the chair report. So I'm going to defer my time to Mr. Limpert and to Ms. Warren. Mr. Limpert, do you want to give us a brief update on the task force you attended?
Mm-hmm. There was a meeting yesterday evening of the town's opioid task force at the police station. The members of that group include police, fire, Board of Health. We have representatives from the schools. Mr. Gilligan was there. Ms. Barzak, our head nurse, was there, and a number of citizens, other people. And the objective of that group is to try to put together data trying to characterize the nature of the problem in our community and look for available resources, and then try to find the gaps that need to be filled to provide the services, and then come up with some plan or some proposal back to the town manager and the Board of Selectmen to deal with the issues. It could include applying for grants. It could include town funding. There's always seems to be a lot of discussion in those meetings about the activity of education, the part our schools play in the drug education problem, and people are always encouraging us to do more, and we say, you bet, we're going to try to do that. We do it, but we're going to do more of it. All of that, but I do think from descriptions that Mr. Gilligan gave and Ms. Barzak gave, we're doing a lot. There's a lot that we already are doing. And part of their tasking for this group is to just sort of document that, so they can bring it back and say, here's, bullet by bullet, here's what we're already doing. Yep. And so that will be, I think, a help to try to allay some of the concerns that there's more we can be doing. But, we can do more. There's always more. The one thing I think that I would say about the issue is, and Mr. Gilligan and our Youth Services Director have been very eloquent in describing what they see as being the problem, which is we have good support mechanisms actually in the K-12 age group. I mean, we really can provide a lot of help there. But once they get out of high school or even college, there isn't so much there for them. And it's hard to know how to get help. And that seems to be, if you look at the statistics now, that seems to be where the overdose deaths are occurring in the sort of the age bracket 25 to 40. Now, certainly if we can help educate our students that don't do that when you get to be 25, that's a good thing. But nonetheless, from a town point of view, I think that's maybe where the work needs to be done, is how do we have services for that group? How do we make people aware of them, and then how do we help provide them? So lots of good energy, lots of good ideas, but it's how long have we been having the war on drugs or something? It's been going on, decades now. So, it's just to try to help our members of our community and others to do the best we can do to help them, with this situation. So I think it's a good group, and I appreciate, Mr. Gillian and Ms. Barzak participating. And this is not the only one of these groups they participate in. They participate in several. So we're trying to really make sure that I think we provide the input and are aware of what's going on. So I think I think we're doing the best we can, and I hope. I don't yet have a time frame for what the group is, when it's supposed to report out, but I would guess a couple more months would be my guess. So maybe certainly before town meeting, there should be some information forthcoming that we'll probably be hearing about. So
thank you for the representation, and I think this is a big and a great effort that Mr. Collegiero is leading, so I'm glad to participate.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a quick question? Sir, did they have any representation from the youth center there?
Yes.
Rick was there?
Yeah,
okay.
He was there. Yeah, he's always there.
Okay, all right. I assume so, but I just...
And the sort of the anecdotal stories that Rick and Mr. Gilligan always tell is, they have worked with students, while they're in school and tried to help them. And, they do the very best they can, but often once they're out of school, then other stuff happens. So, you tell good stories. It's good anecdotal stories for us. So, anyway.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Lippert, at this point, I don't know if it's too early, but have they been able to quantify the extent of the problem in the town of
That's
Andover?
what they're trying to do. And I think last night there was some information provided by the fire department. And I think we have a lot of that data already available through the police and fire reporting systems. I think there's some issue about they want to make sure that it's able to be made public in this context. But I think it's all there. So I think we have a good start at that. It's not, I think there's two parts, what's the absolute number and then what's the trend, so I think they'll be able to tell us something about that. And that's been part of the issue here is like, when you read about it in the Globe or something, it looks like a gigantic problem. What is it here in North Andover? Right. I think that's what we're trying to characterize. So anyway, I think we'll know that.
Looking for actionable items out of that we can take on. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
The second item on the chair report, I'd yield to Ms. Warren to review our NAPAC update.
Yep. So I attended the NAPAC meeting this month, which was a short meeting because they were going into training for a new program they're piloting at Franklin School. The name of the program, of course, is
Understanding Our Differences.
Thank you. And so they had a training for that at that meeting. So the meeting was short, but Leanne Carbone was there, and she gave an update on that they're developing a new assessment piece for the TIP program, and also discussed with the group the new ETL structure for the middle school and the high school, just to keep the group abreast of the changes that are coming through in the new budget. So that was very helpful. And also this Saturday evening at 6 o'clock, they're having a family night at Fuddruckers, and so the entire community is welcome to come, and just an opportunity for families to get to know each other in a social environment. So you just come if you are interested. So that's 6 o'clock this Saturday at Fuddruckers in North Andover, and then they're planning an outing in February at, I think is it Wampscott Lanes? I think there's a new bowling alley someplace. Anyway, so they're planning that for February, so details are to come, but to be aware of that. So thank you, and thank you to NAPAC for having me.
Great, thank you. Do you want to go on to the chair report, and then we can take on our new business?
Sure. So first, I'm going to start, and then I'm going to ask Mr. Limper to give some context for us. But I'd like to recognize Stuart Pesco for his incredible donation, which I believe I have been told is a continued support of the North Andover High School robotics. And I just really appreciate you continuing to support what a wonderful program, having seen it and worked with it. So what did I miss, Mr. Limpert?
I would just say that Mr. Pesco's involvement started when his son was actually involved in the program a number of years ago. And
wow.
He's been a very staunch supporter, and now an active supporter. He's been a robotics judge now for our last couple of tournaments, and we've been enjoying his company and all of that. But we certainly have to express our school department's appreciation for all the support he's given to that activity. It's been numbers of thousands of dollars at this point. We should add it up and find out what it is, because it's...
So I was going to ask Mr. Pesco just come say something quickly,
Please.
if that's all right.
Please, Mr. Pesco.
And thank you.
My wife and I are glad we're able to do it. Just for those of you who don't know me, Stuart Pesco, been a resident here since '81, so I'm a relatively newcomer to town. My son and daughter did go through the North Andover public school system from first grade through high school, and they got a great education. They were well prepared for college. I am now retired. I have been an engineering manager for 30 some odd, some years more odd than others, but 30 some odd years, and my wife is now retired, but she's a mathematician, and we've both been in the business of hiring and developing young engineers, mathematicians, and so on, and we know that there aren't enough of them. Hence, we are very supportive of programs, any STEM-related program that might grow some more of these smart men and women to populate some of the thousands of job openings that there are down in just Kendall Square alone. The robotics program, to me, is an outstanding type of enrichment program. When my children were in the school, really the only enrichment was for technical was the math team. Great, we loved it, had a good time, but it couldn't handle the volume of kids that the robotics program can. Hence, we support the robotics program. I didn't read your budget in detail, but I have a feeling you've given it about as much money as it's going to get and can get. So what I'm most interested in, actually, is we'll continue to give seed money. It'd be nice if we could find another way of raising funds to support that program and to create more programs for technology enrichment within this community. I think that near term, Mike Motherway has done an outstanding job. Again, I'm a professional in the field, and seeing the skills and abilities that some of these students, some juniors and seniors, have come out of there with is very, very impressive. There are a couple kids on the team that I would hire now if I could, in all honesty.
Yeah.
But I think they ought to have the college experience that most of us had the opportunity to enjoy.
It's a good fallback.
Yeah. Sometimes they like to see that piece of paper on the wall.
Yeah,
you
I was
know?
just saying, yeah.
I do wish the robotics program attracted more of the girls. I was very enthused this time to see 2 teams from the middle school. As Stan mentioned, I have been a judge at competitions over the last few years, and I had the opportunity to be one of the judges evaluating one of the middle school teams this year. And I was very impressed for two things. One, just the knowledge that these kids were showing, but two, clearly the outstanding mentorship that the North Andover High School A and B teams have provided. They've been to the middle school. They have been to, I think they've been to the younger schools as well. And the message is getting through. There are more girls on the middle school team than there were on the high school. I would say some of all the teams, so we need to fix that. And my wife would like it as a matter of record that I said that.
Check the tape.
So noted.
She's so noted.
So noted.
Yeah. So I'll just leave it at that, which is we're happy we are in a position to support. We would like to see other parents in the community do so. It's one of Stan and my favorite lunch topic is figuring out, so how the hell do we get that money from them? So we've got some work to do. Dr. Price, if you come in with some ideas that we can help with, we'd be happy to do that. And other than that, I'd be happy to answer any question if there are any. But otherwise...
I want to thank you very much for your sustained support. It's a very important activity, and it definitely opens up the minds. And the fact that it's now in the middle school is, I think, a very good sign. So
Thank you.
I was very happy to see the middle school thing.
Indeed. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so what do you need me to stay through now?
Don't listen to Mr. Lindbergh.
I'm covered?
You're good.
You're good. All right.
Thank you.
I'll sneak out a little bit.
Please.
Thanks for coming.
Just two other quick updates. The first is our demo model classrooms are in the process of being installed. We had 3 classrooms outfitted yesterday, and our goal is to have the remaining 3 demo classrooms outfitted next week, up and running. Our goal is February 1. It looks like we're going to be very close to that goal, so we're very excited about that, and then moving forward in the entire model classroom initiative. But our demos are up, so
Fabulous.
some teachers came to some pretty exciting technology this morning, so it's nice to be moving in that direction. And then lastly, I know folks often wonder, what do we do on those full professional development days, which one was January 15th. And we had a really exciting day. We actually partnered with the Massachusetts Teachers Association's professional development guru and did something called Ed Camp, which is a movement very similar to something called an unconference that many people in the tech world and others are doing. And I'm just going to quickly ask Mr. Gilligan to talk about it for a moment.
Well, you got my explanation out of the way, Dr. Price.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Gilligan.
Ed Camp's really about 3 things. It's participant-driven, and it's about things you may have questions about, things you have interest in, and what you're passionate about in education. And the really cool thing was the MTA's biggest Ed Camp that they had run in the Commonwealth so far was about 275 people. And we ran one very successfully on the 15th with 476 participants, all of our teachers, K through 12, as well as all the teaching assistants across the district. And I have to say, there were 30 sessions, there were 4 blocks of time with 30 different sessions by topic going all generated by the teachers, because we have a lot of experts in the different fields. And I would say there were several around special education. The technology one around Google Apps was packed, and there was a whole host of others. And I mentioned to the teachers that the topics that they selected would rival any local college's grad school spring semester course catalog. And it was really well done. The feedback was pretty amazing, because people felt that they could leave that day and take things back to the classroom the next day and put in. And it also gives us great market research as we continue to move along with our professional development. What are the areas people are most interested in and may need help in? And it was awesome. And one shout out I would say to Erica Murphy, because we did have it at the high school. Thank you to Dr. Scazzarella, who gave up the 30 rooms for each session. But Erica provided lunch for all staff members at the cost of $4, and it was really a dynamite lunch. So she was great. But it was a great day of professional learning And I think oftentimes in the field of education, sometimes teachers don't necessarily look at themselves as the experts, but they have a lot of knowledge to share best practice, and if they have questions about different topics. So it was great.
The full list of all of the topics will actually be coming out in my newsletter on Monday. So if anyone is interested, you can just click through. And just so you understand, we showed up with no topics. I mean, that's how this thing happens. You show up in the morning and people put stuff up and facilitate. So it's a little bit of a leap of faith. You're showing up for a full day professional development with no idea what's going to happen. And people just rose to the occasion, and the conversations were incredible. And many people in the feedback, we got 350 people or something.
359 responses with, maybe 20 to 25% said it was the best professional development experience any school district they've been in their entire career.
Yeah, and literally you show up with not having a clue what's going to happen.
Does somebody sort of step up to lead the session?
Well, so there's moments of chaos, which for those who like order, it's a little overwhelming. And so basically what we did was teachers just put up on a board what they want to do, and as we were doing that, Carol Arkham was putting it on a Google Doc, and within 20 minutes we had 112 sessions up. It was incredible. And really fun. Great energy.
Back to your point, the market research. So now you know what teachers
Exactly.
are interested in.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and one of the things was the cross-pollination of grade levels, elementary and high school, and really this, as we move forward, talk of a systems approach, how K through 5 impacts 6 through 8 and 9 through 12 and the transitions, and I just have to say it was awesome.
It was really great.
So one of the things, having attended a few of those in industry, that's valuable is the artifact that you get out of those sessions.
Absolutely.
Is that something that we've documented, or at least?
Yeah, so what we did in the Google Doc is people took notes on each session. So we have that. That won't be viewable to the public.
Understood.
But you can see the 112 sessions that we did.
And just one last piece is, now that we've run this and everyone has an understanding of it, this is really something easy to replicate in a building that might just have 1 hour one day after school. And you can set up topics prior to on a Google Sheet, and people can come with different things to share. So it's
Great.
That's awesome.
It was a great day.
Excellent.
Okay, I'm done.
Great. So moving on and begging the committee's indulgence, I'd like to take new business out of order and jump to item 9C, the North Andover High School Program of Study Informational Presentation. If that's reasonable, Dr. Scazzarello, would you join us?
It's not all in here. You may have to click through, but Jim can show it to you because it was many, many pages.
Many
so
pages.
I did not print it off.
75, if I recall.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Hi, how is everyone? Thanks for having us. I don't know if you have any specific questions. Not much changed from last year to this year. A few tweaks here and there, but we've been running a similar program for the last 6 years, so we're pretty solid in our offerings and nothing new.
Seems like it's been a while.
No, I think in the last 4 years we added the junior AP English Language and Composition and the sophomore AP European History. And actually we also added American Government and Politics for seniors. So we've added 3 probably in the last 5 years. I always have my eye on AP Computer Science, but I really need I would need another computer teacher in order to be able to expand our offerings for some. We still have not really expanded to do any higher level computer courses. So the person's pretty tied up with our 21st century skills and intro to computer programming. So we haven't been able to do that yet, but hopefully. That's still always on my desk, the sticky note.
So it's a massive document, and appreciate the effort to bring it forward. Can you just highlight the significant differences of either curriculum reduction or curriculum expansion that we can expect next year?
As I said, there really isn't much of a change from last year's offerings. The one thing we put in is a hybrid German 1/2 course for our incoming 9th graders. The German program has shrunk a little bit because we're not able to have students take it as as much at the middle school as would support our program. So one of the things we talked about was a way to bring in the ninth graders who might be interested in either staying in German, because they had it a little bit in 8th grade, or trying it out in the 9th grade, but getting them through German 1 and 2, so they'll take it for all 3 trimesters instead of just 2, and it'll go at an accelerated pace, so they'll be ready for 3A, German 3A, as a sophomore, and be able to get to advanced placement. That's been a little bit of a concern. The French numbers are really good, and have been for the last 2 years, so we're just, I hate to look at one of our languages shrinking, so I said we'll give it a shot and see if we draw a few more kids into a more accelerated 9th grade program that gets them to the 3rd year of the language as sophomores.
I remember last year you did a hybrid phys ed election. How'd that work out?
Yeah. Last year we had a lot of students in that the wellness course offered in German. So that was fun for the kids, and they enjoyed that. This year we maybe had half the numbers, because I think last year a lot of juniors and seniors took it. And we also had the Zumba in Spanish. Zumba Espanol, which is fun. But one of the things we learned is it was a little difficult to have Zumba every day, because see, the class has to meet every day. Yeah. So that was challenging for some of them. They didn't really want to exercise that much. So we left it. It's still in the program of studies, because we did. If I have 20 students who are interested, we'll run it again. I didn't have enough students initially sign up for it for this year. So it went really well last year, and I think the German wellness class was smaller this year. But we keep it in there, because every year a different group of kids looks at the program of studies and makes decisions about what fits and what doesn't fit. And those 2 courses were a way for students who maybe have to step away from the language for part of a year because they have other graduation requirements they have to meet. It was a way for them to meet a graduation requirement in the physical education area, but still be using their language. So it was nice for them, and the teachers enjoyed it. It was fun.
Right.
Next year, is that when the bubble class shows up?
The current 7th graders are the last of the big bubble. We have 2 in my building right now. The 9th and 10th graders are big. The 8th graders they're not small. They're just not as big as the 9th and 10th grade classes. They're more along what we've been getting for years. And then the 7th grade is another big class. So in the fall of 2017, we'll have 3 grades in the building that will be close to 400. We'll be as big as we're going to be, I think, based on the NESDEC projections out many years. We'll be as big as we're going to be, because those 3 big classes will all be in the building at the same time.
Does that have any impact on the program of studies? Do you have to adjust the program of studies when you have that many more students?
Generally, we need to have more sections of things, and it usually balances off because, for example, the 9th and 10th grade classes are large. The senior class is the smallest class in the building. So I might need 1 or 2 less people focused on all senior classes that you can move to do 9th and 10th grade. And that's typically how we've handled the times when we've had big groups. But when we have 3 of the 4, and the 4th one won't be that small. Like I said, they're about 350. That's not really that small. Small in comparison to 380, 390, 400. That will be challenging for us that 1 year, to make everything work and make sure we have enough sections of courses for everyone. But
so that will probably be the largest enrollment that's ever been in high school.
I personally think so. I've not seen numbers that were, we're going to be close to 1,500 by my estimates, because we always get, we've been doing very well having the North Andover students who go to St. Michael's come to North Andover High School. And we also tend to get a lot of sophomores back. Who've gone out for 9th grade perhaps and make a decision that they'd prefer to be at North Andover High. So we usually, maybe 30 to 35, maybe 40 kids choose to go elsewhere, and then a good chunk of them come back. So, and we always have move-ins. I had some calls during Christmas break when I was working. A couple people came in. The office is very quiet. It was just me wanting to register for the Monday after New Year's. They were moving from Methuen to North Andover, and so we always have new students coming in. We've kept our enrollment pretty steady, and that 7th grade coming into the high school it'll be big for us. Halls will feel very congested because the building was only built for 1,500, and so we're pretty close. We'll be pretty close.
And that will require additional staff, and we talked about that in the budget process next year.
They've heard me say that for probably 4 years. I've been talking about when these people all come to the high school.
So we need to find a Zumba German computer science. Something like
they
that.
need to have many talents in order to help us get through that.
Yeah, I share your comments on it would be great to be able to extend the STEM program, and I look forward to hearing about opportunities to do that.
And computer program.
Yeah. Yeah. And our robotics program, I only have one teacher, so I can't offer as many sections as I would like, and that program has grown by leaps and bounds. As you know, when we started out, we only had one small section, and now his schedule, that's most of Mike Motherway's schedule. So, those are two areas in that realm where we could certainly use, I'd love to find a person who could do both of those pieces. Probably there are people out there that could, and then split time between the computers and the robotics and help us fill some of those.
And as Mr. Pesca pointed out, now we're developing a farm club.
Yeah.
So it's only going to get more dramatic because you're going to have now students
yeah,
coming
and
up from the
Mr.
middle
Cushing
school.
does something at the Kittredge with
absolutely.
robotics.
we
So,
have
I mean, kids are
elementary,
exposed to
middle,
it.
and now high school,
They're
so
exposed
it's a
to it,
first
and they're
for it.
excited about it. And, we'll continue to encourage our female population.
Can I ask a quick question? So, obviously now this is public, but when does this really kind of get into the hands of the 8th grade students?
Well, I usually wait for the school committee's okay, and because we don't go to a printer anymore,
Okay.
we do everything electronic. It'll be they're slotted for March 1st, but
Is that when they pick
it'll be up
schedules,
on
or-
the website as soon as I can put it up there. They'll be the guidance counselors will be going over to the middle school in February, so that's next week. They'll start that. My own students will start making their choices. Teachers at the high school have already been making recommendations. So this will go. I'll probably try to get it up on the website within a week, just to make sure if anyone has any other questions or concerns, we address those before we put it up. But the nice thing about not sending it out to be printed is it can always be corrected if it needs be. I can put it up as a draft, and it's pretty much the same as last year's. So that's what I'd be telling people. Look at last year's, the courses, other than that German course. The courses are all the same.
So the one thing that I remember kind of from last year as some of our family friends and neighbors, their kids started to go to the high school. This is the first time that they were actually kind of using it and kind of going through it, and just amazed at the number of offerings that are out there. And just, I mean, I think when you're on that trimester schedule, you have so much flexibility in terms of how you can kind of place them into different classes and give them an opportunity to maybe try something that is a little bit out of their comfort zone, but also still something that is going to challenge them and just excite them about this. So I think that this is great, and I really am very impressed. So,
Thank you. We've worked really hard
It gets a
from
very-
some of you were here 9 years ago. We've worked really hard to have a very well-rounded program for our students, and I'm a big believer and a supporter in our arts program. It's why it's part of our graduation requirements. I think you need music and art and wellness, and our business course. Our business courses are, again, another place where I could use another body. Those two gentlemen are packed to the gills with kids, and you see 120 students competing in our DECA program at the district level, 65 going on to states. phenomenal growth in that program in 6 years. You know, we were one of the fastest growing DECA programs in this area, and I think we're still the 4th largest now, having started with, 20, if we had 20 the first year. So
It's
the elective
great.
program is solid, and it's good career pathways and choices for our students to gain experience and see if it's a path for them when they leave North Andover
And the other
High.
thing I would say, to back up what Mr. McDevitt said, is I think we really, have to thank you for really having encouraged us to go to the trimester, because I think that's made all this possible. Prior to that, we were doing grade level at high school, right? AKA study halls, right? We have none.
We were in a difficult place, and the reality is we were not getting 25 to 30 teachers. So Mr. Gilligan was actually the head of that study group we put together, and they looked at a lot of schedules, and we tried to be creative. And so now I think this is our 6th year with this schedule, and we tweak it every year and make it better. And is it our 7th?
Starting
It is,
7th,
because
yeah.
we did, because the first 2 years I remember saying I can't change schedules again, because these poor some of the kids would have had 4 different schedules in 4 years.
Yeah.
So we hung in there for another year and then went to this, and it works for us. It's been a great system, and we're working next year to try and really match teachers so they have the same 9th and 10th graders is our focus, to have the same teacher for the core subjects for both parts or all 3 parts. And unless students have to change schedules during the summer, that should be pretty, we're feeling pretty good about that we're finally able to make that work.
Great.
So, should be
Any
good.
other comments from the committee?
Thank you, Dr.
Great.
Scarpello.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So as a point of reference, we'll be approving this next meeting. So if there are any comments, corrections, please forward them into the...
So with your
February 4th.
permission, if it's it's only February 4th?
Yeah.
Oh, then I can wait till,
Next Thursday.
that's next week. I can wait, and it'll go up on our website on Friday if there's nothing else, okay?
Great.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, so moving back into old business, I'm going to take 8A, discussion on the superintendent's recommended 2017 budget.
Yeah, and given that this was the public hearing, I just thought I'd quickly start with just an overview of the budget, and I will be very quick. But Mr. Mealy and I thought we should give you a quick overview. Just a reminder of the process, starting with our entry data, the visioning process, looked at a lot of data, spent a lot of time with the central office team, and then the full leadership team worked very collaboratively with the town manager, and then reached out to impacted teachers to finalize the budget proposals. So as a result, overall financial picture, level services was a little under 3%, proposed increases of 0.73. We restructured a number of things and saved some money, increasing a special ed contingency on our side so that we are able to adapt to changes. And then I proposed a very small reserve to adapt to any changes between now and next fiscal year. So that's the overall picture. Just the proposed increases, just a quick list. All, I believe, should look very familiar to you. And then the restructuring, the major restructuring here is the business office reorganization, and that includes a pretty significant change in human resources. And then special ed contingency. If you look at our out-of-district and circuit breaker, we believe that with a 72% circuit breaker reimbursement plus the $44,000 proposed, our hope is to start the year with a little over $200,000 to deal with unanticipated, anticipated special education out-of-district costs. And we feel it's very financially prudent to put money in there, knowing that we don't know where it's going to go, but we know it's going to go.
And we still feel comfortable enough with the 72%?
Yeah, the 72%, we've gotten no indication that that's going to change. And then the small amount for reserve, just to deal with if we do end up moving in anything around our legal services. We want some flexibility when we go out to hire the best human resources director. So just a small amount that gives us some flexibility. So that's the overall structure of the budget. And you can see the full amount is there. Something is 3.7% increase, which is in line with what the town manager has asked all town departments to do. So this, again, just to reiterate, is a collaborative effort between the town and the schools.
This assumes that there is no kindergarten grant next year?
The kindergarten grant, we are assuming the kindergarten grant, but the town manager has committed that if the kindergarten grant does not come through, the money will be made up and added to our bottom line from the town.
That's subject to the state budgeting
Yes.
process, so it's out of our control.
So what we've now done is just, you guys requested some additional information, so we just keep trying to adapt to answer the questions you asked last time. So, Mr. Mealy, there was some stuff about miscellaneous revolving accounts.
Right, I had a category that was miscellaneous for the smaller ones, and I was asked what that included. So it was the all-day kindergarten, insurance recovery, the alt-evening school, high school donations, middle school donations, and consolidated stipends. And pretty much, when we talk about revolving accounts, these are pass-through accounts that the money comes in and it goes out for the expenses specified by that revolving account. It's not usually it's usually a zero balance at the end of the year.
So the insurance recovery, that's, we paid out, but...
That was the high school, the end of the high school repairs to the field house.
Right, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, what is the all-day kindergarten?
That was just, in that case, it was just the funds that were remaining when we closed that out. So it doesn't continue.
When we had people paying for full-day kindergarten, yeah, 2,000.
Float over.
Right, because we were looking at the
$300.
previous year, not the coming year.
Okay.
And then we had a question about students at the different vocational and charter school. So here's the enrollment numbers. We showed last year and this year, and then put a column in for this year's tuition, so you can see what's going on there. You know, we've got some schools that have seen an increase, and a couple have seen a decrease. But overall, you're seeing an increase to students going, especially at the Greater Lawrence Technical School.
Yeah.
Now,
Could
I'm sorry, no, go ahead, Mr. Tracy.
you speak to the tuition number, the dollar numbers, though? It seems there's one student at Newburyport for $10,000. There's 4 students at community charter at $14,000?
No, the tuition number is just per student.
Per student, okay.
Right.
Okay, I thought it was total.
But one of the things that does become challenging with that is Essex is becoming the
Preferred.
more and more kids, and it is the most expensive technical school.
Do we also have to pay transportation or not?
It depends on which one, and if we have offerings or not.
So for, let's say Essex Tech, do we pay?
For instance, we have a student that wanted to do robotics, and we didn't have enough of an offering for that, so we have to pay for transportation for that student to go to the school they've chosen.
But if we have the offerings, then
we don't have to.
we don't have to.
I mean, they can still go there. but we don't
Correct.
have to-
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, I see a bus downtown every morning from Whittier or Greater Lawrence, the kids waiting out front.
It might be interesting to be able to look at the curriculum gap that is, drawing the students to alternative educational locations. Not that, I don't think the transportation is that significant compared to the cost of tuition, unless that's...
No, I mean, you'll see a large number when we have an out-of-district placement, because
Right.
it's a long distance to travel, but it's
Yeah.
not so bad with these schools.
But Minuteman's not right around the
No,
corner.
no.
Yeah,
that was-
yeah.
Yep.
And that's a big change year over year, and I don't think we saw that change in the past years.
And I would be very honest to tell you that I think this change, especially to the vocational schools, is only going to increase. If you looked at Governor Baker's budget, everyone's talking about the increase of vocational technical schools. And I will say, having come from running a comprehensive high school, much of what the vocational schools are offering, there's no way we could afford to offer. We can't build the shops. We can't. I mean,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
the reality is, I would expect that this trend will only increase. And my anticipation is that this trend will be increasing across the Commonwealth. It won't just be impacting the North Andover Public Schools.
So how do they come up with the tuition, though? I mean, because, I'm sure the offerings are wonderful, but the tuition per student is significantly more, for the most part, than what we spend here in North Andover, and, students who stay in district.
Yeah, and
So
that's...
is there any limit at the state level, or they can just...
So this is the challenge. I mean, one of the challenges for us when we go out of district, whether for vocational and/or for charter or special ed, we are paying the same amount that a district like Andover, who spends $3,000 more a kid than we do, is paying. So the relative cost is much higher for North Andover.
But I guess what I'm wondering is, in their charters or however they're developed, whether it be a charter school or the vocational, is there any limit at the state level, any sort of oversight as to?
I have no idea.
Are you asking how they set tuition rates?
Well,
they work with the state to set tuition rates, and so do all, there's a cap and there's a whole process, but the reality is.
The disparity is so dramatic.
Yep.
I mean, if we're spending 11 here approximately, and you look at, Essex or Minuteman, it's 17 and a half. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, and that's much, much lower than we're paying in many of our special ed out of districts.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and we're paying the exact same amount per kid.
Great.
Can I just ask a couple of questions, get back to the charters, because the charters and the vocationals are much different. My understanding, my recollection, I say, with the charter schools at least, the first year, there's no impact to us. Is that correct?
Do you mean when the charter school actually opens up?
No, I'm talking when one of our students decides to leave. It looks like there were no kids last year going to community day charter school. Now there's 4 kids at community day charter school. My understanding is that shouldn't hit our bottom line at all.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the case. I've heard that with regards to a school opening up in the first year, there's not the impact. But I don't know about a student in their first year. I can find out
And I guess I'd ask the question is, because obviously those 4, not knowing who the kids are or the pupils are, but the 2 kids who were at the Lawrence Family Day Development Charter School could have easily transferred to, could have gone to the other school system, the other charter school? Because if that's the case, those 4 kids that are at the community day charter school, they're going to be there for 8 years probably.
And the other challenge for us is, I mean, I think the community day, I think it was actually a family that just moved in and never attended the North Andover Public Schools, right? So that's the other challenge. I believe that was all one family who attended that school and happened to move into our district. So there's also that challenge. Mr. Gilligan, isn't that correct? I believe that was the case with the community day.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding of how the charter schools work, and hadn't had a few, I mean, sometimes we don't even know a kid applies to get in a charter school, he's on a wait list, he gets in,
right,
and they go.
Or they happen to be in the school and move into district.
But
vice versa, exactly.
The way the formula is supposed to work is the first year that kid goes to school, we're not supposed to hit it all with any kind of hit, and then it's a sliding scale over, I think, 3 or 4 years. Now, with that being said, Dr. Price alluded to Governor Baker and the vocational schools. He's put forth a new charter school funding formula. So I don't think we want to waste your time examining that quite yet, because there's a long way to go before that becomes law, if it ever becomes law. But it's something to keep in mind. If we're going to have those 4 children attending that school, which is obviously their right, but that's going to impact us for probably several years to come.
I thought it was just the first year.
No, it's a sliding scale. The first year, supposedly the first year there's no hit, and then the second year you take a 60% hit. And then it's a sliding thing over 3 or 4 years, if I recall correctly. I apologize for not having the exact numbers.
Yeah, we'll get the information for you.
So
Thank you.
So at this point, there's probably nothing that we need to concern ourselves with for budgeting in 2017, but we...
And the way that we do this is this money actually comes out of the budget prior to the allocation. So this is not, I mean, why we don't have this down.
It's on your cherry sheet, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, it's on cherry sheet.
And so this money we never see. So we're not bringing it out of the 46 that comes to us.
But it won't be the first time DOR did something wrong. That's what I mean. It's something that we should really look into to see how many kids are going, because you're right, we don't see it. It never hits here.
It never hits us.
Does the same apply to vocational school?
Yes.
Do you know?
But the vocational school, I think, is just the numbers. There's no sliding
scale.
Right.
No, the number's the number.
Right.
Okay. Well, thank you for bringing this forward.
The next thing you guys asked for, just very quickly, was the number of kids who are double up and band at the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So I just thought I'd tell you that. So 75 kids at the 6th grade at NAMS are taking a double band right now, 116 7th graders and 79 8th graders. Just remember, the 7th grade is the largest class, so that's our bubble class. So about 23% of the kids in the school are taking it, which you had asked. Okay? And then additional budget information. Mr. Mealy?
Yeah, somebody had asked on the end of year report, there's a number of $5,000 for school choice, and it's an indirect cost sheet item from the town accounts for the Whittier Vocational School, is what that number is. And then the last one was, what are the items that are excluded from the per pupil cost calculation? I had mentioned transportation and food services, and the additional items are capital and debt expenses.
Okay.
And then the last thing is I took a crack at looking at the per pupil expenditures that I presented to you. You have a sheet in front of you. It's also part of the PowerPoint, I believe, right? Or it's right. It's, for those at home, it's on the updated comparable information under old business. And you'll notice that I looked at the enrollment trends at our 24 surrounding districts. So you can see we're one of the few districts, of less than half of the districts, that increased enrollment. So those are the ones in black. We've gone up 3.9% over the last 5 years of data. And a number of districts, so for instance, we had seen an almost 30% increase in Boxford. They had gone down 22% in students. So, you know, when you look at per pupil, we still have a very low per pupil, but when we look at enrollment, you can see that part of the reason our per pupil may not have grown at the rate we would hope it had grown is that we have increased enrollment.
So let that loose. You can't hold that in.
Yeah.
Good for you.
So anyways, I kind of made up a number at the end, which is enrollment, percent change enrollment, and percent change in funding, and added those together. It's sort of an unfair thing to do. I am fudging a little on numbers, but it's just a way to compare when you look at enrollment and budget changes. Where do we stack? We're still the 6th lowest, even when we factor in changes in enrollment. Does that make sense? You had asked on the impact of. It's a little fudgy at the end. I will admit it. There's lots of folk. There's a little new math, but I was trying to make it make sense, and it sort of did in my weird brain.
Okay. Great.
There you go. Do you have one more of the sheets? I didn't.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's
one. Yep, I gave. Sorry.
I didn't see some.
There you go.
Sorry.
Thank you. So, anyways, just thought you had asked. There you go.
Actually, it's surprising how many districts have decreased.
Yeah, I found that surprising too. I mean, and some pretty significantly.
Yeah.
Yeah, 20%.
Tewksbury down 12. Yeah, and it was interesting when I was talking with the folks from Tewksbury with Dr. Scazzarella. I mean, I said, "Oh, your per pupil's gone up precipitously from 10,000 to 13,000. A good chunk of that is decreased enrollment.
Right. Fixed cost, fewer students. Right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's just more information.
Great, thank you. Want to talk a little bit about the budget update, 2016?
Yes, Mr. Mealy?
Oh, budget status report.
Budget status report.
This is also in our packet.
So we continue to progress as we would think. As you look at the different, and again, we've done it by expense and salary, by location. We are now halfway through the fiscal year, or even more so. January 1 begins the second half of the fiscal year, and we are almost, I think this actually tomorrow, or today, might be the halfway point of the school year. Yep.
Okay.
So you would anticipate, looking at the percentages, that you are around 50%. Now that is impacted by some things are bought right at the start of the year for some lines, and some are completely spent before school even starts, like the custodial summer help. So that impacts it. But when you look at the overall number, we are right around halfway spent for the year. I think we're at 48%. And the only thing I'll point out regarding the out-of-district is, as you'll see when we look at special education, that one's a little higher. And so we are projecting that to be higher than we had budgeted, even with the contingency. And that flows right into our update for out-of-district, well, mainly out-of-district, but special education, which would be covered by the stabilization fund that was created at town meeting last year. We continue just to add on to these items that have been changes since the year started, and I highlight the current month we're in. We had been, for the last 3 months, we've been projecting that for the year we anticipated about $150,000 would need to come from the stabilization fund, and that continues to trend that way. We are now at $127,000 because at the end of December and during this month we've added a 45-day placement that went to 45-day that went to a placement, and then another student that's gone into a 45-day, and then the additional transportation costs have been added in. So we are now projecting $127,503 will be needed from the stabilization fund.
And the maximum draw is $250 per year.
The maximum draw, I think, in any 1 year is $250, and over a 2-year period is $400.
But this is trending as we anticipated.
So if that does happen, we did, I think Dr. Price mentioned in the executive summary that it would allow us $250,000 next year if needed, but would be available in the stabilization fund.
Okay.
Didn't we have a student who was moving out of?
And out of district back in?
Yeah, he is. He has visited. We don't anticipate him to actually start until Monday, so we're going to help put that on February.
Okay, all right. I was thinking that
We
it
were
had
gonna save the
happened,
good
so.
news till
Okay,
February.
all right, sorry. I burst your bubble a
Because
week
at the
early,
same time, we were
so.
going to use that money to hire a new teaching assistant. We
Okay.
thought we'd do that at the same time.
All right.
But yes.
Yeah, I saw one in like
And I
the
met
fall.
the young
but-
man, and he's really excited to be back.
Perfect.
Great.
And I have to say, I just, in going into the TIP program, and just a great moment. Mr. Gilligan and I had the opportunity to meet the young man, and both of us walked out and said, just felt good about the work we've done, because this kid should be in our schools, and it's
Yep.
great to have him back. He's excited.
Excellent.
It just felt, it was a feel-good moment. Would you say that?
Agree 100%.
Yeah. What did he say to you? He said something really funny to you.
I introduced myself, and I'm not going to reveal his name.
Of course.
We'll call him John. He said, "Hey, I'm John." So it's real personable.
Yeah.
And it was really great to have him back.
Yeah,
Great.
really great.
Okay, so if there are any questions, now's the time, or forward them off. Okay, thank you, and it looks like we got MuniSense to make sense.
It's getting there.
It's
yeah.
getting there. Thank you very much. It's starting to be understandable again.
As soon as we can get Excel output through, it would be really great.
Great. So moving on to new business, we have a superintendent's mid-cycle review. And I know this is a little early than what we traditionally had scheduled, and I appreciate Dr. Price taking the time to prepare this, to get a first look through both the process and the artifacts. So, Dr. Price, you want to walk us through your...
Yeah, we have a
recap?
pretty packed calendar coming up around curriculum issues, so I thought just trying to get this off would be good today. The little document at the top of it just talks about, what is that, visual at the top, talks about that we had done my goals, we have been working on that, and this is an opportunity. There's really no formal action that has to be taken place. That'll be in my summative evaluation, but just an opportunity to check in as we are halfway through my first year as superintendent. So I had 5 major goals in the memo at the front. I just kind of gave my quick overview on how I'm feeling about each of these goals. The first was the entry process, and I feel that really helped engage the community. I've really enjoyed working with the principals in the central office around their goals to keep momentum going. I've really benefited from my participation in the new superintendent's induction program, specifically working with my amazing mentor, Carla Bear, who continues to push me all the time. And I think that we're working really hard on developing a consistent and rigorous evaluation process as a leadership team. And my last goal was around visibility, and I think I've been a visible presence in our schools and our community and anywhere else anyone ever chooses to invite me.
That's accurate.
So invite me away. So what I've tried to do here is in each goal, give you the goal and try to put it all in one document. Talk about what the benchmarks, and the only thing I've really added here is the mid-cycle evidence. A lot of this you've seen before, some of it you may not have. all of these are hyperlinks that anyone can see, and really divided the evidence into two areas, what I can already present for mid-cycle, and then what I anticipate will be evidence in June. So that's how this kind of goes through, and I really think at this point I should stop talking, and you guys should kind of give me some feedback.
Great. So I think this is a great start, and I think the alignment of the goals and the evidence is very, very helpful, and I really appreciate the linkage into the artifacts. Personally, I think that we might want to get a little deeper into some of the artifacts in terms of, I'm trying to recall, there was, I think it was the goal associated with the new superintendent evaluation. I'd love to see some of those participation items.
Some of your homework.
Some of the homework.
Yeah, your attendance sheet, good. Showed up for all the
Just to get some enrichment.
So my biggest homework, I will be very straightforward with you, has been I had to present my entry report.
Oh.
So you've seen it.
Okay.
And I can share the agendas with you, or you can look at the binder.
Or like if you get any feedback from your mentor or whatever, something.
Well, I'm not going to share all that with you.
Yeah.
Could be here all night.
All the positive.
Yeah, no, okay, then that will be really quick. Yeah.
Well, and that might be part of the artifact that would be helpful to have Dr. Bear.
Yeah, you can have,
come back
maybe at the
and-
end of the year, she could come back and talk about that.
That could be a verbal.
Yeah, absolutely.
That might be valuable.
Yeah.
So again, I think I agree with most of the artifacts. I agree with most of the benchmarks. I like seeing this presentation because it's not going to be a scurry for us at the end of the year to try to figure out how to put this into the format. And I'll open it to others. Mr. Lippert?
Other than your new superintendent's induction, I think for me, your goals 1 and 5 home runs. I'm done. That's good on that. 2 and 4, a little bit more sort of. I don't know. I'll say this, but I don't know exactly how I would characterize it. Quantitative something, how often, what does it, like meeting, like the teacher evaluation, what is that? This is sort of the qualitative.
So if you look at the mid-cycle evidence, Mr. Mealy, could you bring up this completion of goals on the mid-cycle evidence for the maintaining momentum? So one of the
Which number
issues,
goal is that?
that's goal number
number two.
2, mid-cycle number 1. So, one of the things here is this goal is about me working with principals to complete their goals, and I gave a few samples, but part of this is principal goals are something between me and the principal. So here is an example that every administrator I supervise in the district quantitatively has completed their goals. It's going to be hard for me to do much more than that, than to show completion rates. So that's just an example. That's a print off from Oasis.
I mean, just so is there some way you could give us sort of like generic examples without
I did. So in the next sampling of principal goals, I gave you the one that we agreed to, if you go to the next one, and then I gave you examples and tried to remove anything that would be identifiable to a principal. So you can see we have a joint professional practice goal for the entire district, and then I have sample school improvement goals and sample principal professional practice goals, so student learning goals. So try to give some there.
Yeah, I think, so
And
now
then the log of my school visits, Bev has been doing an excellent job, and we will continue. You can kind of see on every day where I've been, which I know it doesn't really, it's not like a percentage, but it is some quantitative data.
No, it's helpful to hear you describe that, because I wouldn't necessarily have guessed exactly that those were genericized actual goals. So
Yeah,
you say that, I'm good.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Ms. Warren?
I think maybe building on what you were speaking about, Stan, I think I'm looking forward to seeing what the anticipated, the end of the year evidence piece, but maybe building on what you were saying about something, maybe some more specifics. I think anything that can be connected back to, we've had a lot of presentations now about the budget and the areas of success in the district, but also areas of concern. And then we've had the MCAS presentations about what we were successful in and what areas we're struggling in. And I think any kind of evidence of what's being implemented in the schools based on that information, and that I'm guessing that would tie into goals as well, but maybe some of the initiatives or
other things. It doesn't have to be tied maybe to specific goals, or I don't know how it might be done, but
So, Mr. Mealy, I'd ask you to go to the focus areas, issues of practice, which is under goal number 4. So one of the ways we've really been addressing the issues that you bring up, Ms. Warren, is we've been going to each school and focusing. So, and I've been very clear what school these are, because these been shared with the faculty. So you will see that 2 of the biggest concerns we identified in our MCAS presentation was math at the high school. The entire leadership team and did a walkthrough of the math department at the high school in October. Another concern was special education and at the Sargent Elementary School. The entire leadership team, and here are the issues of practice and our guiding questions that we did while walking through those schools. We've also been working, one of the things out of the MCAS presentation was what do we do around intervention blocks? Atkinson, we went and looked at that as an entire leadership team, and then we spent some time last month down at Kittredge looking at engagement and student engagement. So there's just some examples of just wanted to call, not that I just wanted to call people's attention to that.
no, and I think all those things are wonderful, and the fact that you're focused on specific areas where we know we need to just
Correct.
continue to improve, I think is wonderful. But I think what would be great too is to see what, after all that, what came out of it. So what's next, what's being done? Because I
Absolutely.
think one of the areas for families, I think, to know is it's great that we're finding all this, but then knowing, and now because of that, here are some initiatives that we have. Here's some training that we're implementing in PD days. Based on the walkthroughs for math or special ed or whatever, we now know that we've identified some strategies, we're working together, whatever those next steps are. So I think whether it be the PTOs, the families at home, just to be able to support those initiatives. And I think hearing that just strengthens the partnership between home and school. But I think there's a lot of great information here.
I just
so
wanted
thank
to
you.
highlight that.
No, it's wonderful.
Thank you. Mr. Tracy?
Yeah, I'm very content with the mid-cycle review so far. I think, as Stan mentioned, 1 in 5 speak for themselves. I think the entry report that was presented before, the feedback that we've received, your visibility and your engagement in all kinds of groups has been positive, and you could definitely quantify how much you've done in those regards. I think one of the biggest challenges, and this is my first full year on the board, is reviewing your performance is a challenge for. It's not like a normal employer-employee relationship where we're observing you every day.
Right.
So that's where the challenge comes from us, and how do we get that proper feedback? And the best way to get that feedback is actually to come back from your subordinates, principals, teachers. I would say parents as our customers are part of our feedback, and I would say to this date, anecdotally, you're hitting it out of the park. Principals and teachers that I've talked to are very, very happy, and I know a lot of the parents are. I think one area that we can focus on and have clear, I think, result is probably number 4, which seems to have been a problem in the past. And I think when we look at that and having that consistent evaluation of teachers and having it fair across the board, I think that would be something we should really focus on. But everything to date is something that I'm very pleased with.
Great, thank you.
I'm just going to be brief. I mean, I'm very, very pleased. Even without the documents, I mean, there's nobody in town who I think has anything but ridiculously glowing remarks.
There's a few.
Who are they? No, I mean, I think this is fantastic. I mean, I think the best thing that I would put out there is we know that we have problems. We know that we have issues. We haven't ever, I think, been so vocal about identifying what they are and what we are going to do to make those be addressed. I mean, I think we've known what they are. We've kind of talked a little bit and tried to figure out, I feel like we put it right out there on the table, and then we can say, okay, we're going to start to talk about it. So, and I think, in all of this, we really have gotten some great examples of things that we have been wanting to see for a very long time. So, after whatever this is, maybe 6-7 months or so, I'm never always excited about doing the end of the year evaluation, but that's going to be exciting to see the progress
Yeah.
come through. So, thank you.
Yeah. And in closing, I think, we got more than what we'd hoped for to date, so please keep up the energy, keep up the positive.
Mr. Gross, can I ask a question? So, since you're the person that's going to do this, right, the summative evaluation, do you anticipate us mapping it back into the DESE format, or just keeping this, or what do you?
I think that this document will run as an artifact log.
Yeah, but at the end.
At the end, we'll go through our observational assessments, and we can use this as reference.
Okay.
So I don't think we're going to be doing copy and paste into the DESE form, but use this as a summative evaluation because it's in the right format as far as I can tell.
Okay, yeah, no,
Yeah, and I mean, the key here is, there's two parts of my evaluation. One is my progress on my goals, and one is my overall performance. So I'm just reporting on the progress on my goals, which is my component of it. And, I would say a lot of what we had talked about and we had agreed to, there are many more things to come. I mean, I have a lot more work to do here.
and I just wanted to mention to Mr. Teresi, we've struggled with that issue every year almost. How do we evaluate somebody whose performance we don't actually see every day? So that's been an issue.
Yeah.
We've talked about that almost every year. The other thing I would say is the sort of the one off evaluation, the off review concern that I would voice is you're too energetic, right? Too much going. I'm concerned you're going to overstress the organization. We're going to, it's all going to start smoking and stop. And that worries me a little.
They put up with me for 9 years at a previous institution.
I know, but it's culture shock.
And they're recovering this year, but
it's coming. So as long as there's enough blocking and tackling going on, I'm good. So
don't
so
worry.
far, so
That's
good.
what Mr. Mealy and Mr. Gilligan are for.
I know.
We just built the fire station right next to the
That's right. Close at hand.
But I do appreciate, Stan, that, always my challenge has been as a leader is making sure that my foot is on the gas pedal appropriately. And, I think some worry about me, and that's not been an issue, but it's about the impact on others. So it is one thing that I have always been cognizant of. And it's really hard for me because this work, I'm not building widgets, and there's kids, and it's so deeply personal and passionate for me that sometimes my passion makes me push harder than I should.
I get that, but for all of us, we get credit not for starts but for finishes.
Correct.
Right. So we can start 1,000 things, but we finish only 99.
Yep, I agree.
1 or 3 out of that.
So I think that's good feedback to consider as part of the summative evaluation at the end of the year. So not only what got accomplished, but how it got accomplished.
But you're right.
But to that end, I think, number 1 and I guess number 3 to a lesser degree, those have been accomplished already. I hope when we do the final review, we don't, have to rehash that, because I think we're all very happy with your entry and how it's gone so far. I think I mentioned number 5. To me, it's a continuous goal for as long as you stay here.
I agree.
But, I think you've hit the ones already out of the park. So
Yeah, good. I'm good.
Agreed.
I think the change of the positive momentum has,
My sense is we're getting exactly what we were looking for.
extraordinarily noticeable. I appreciate it.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, looks like we have a look at the revolving account.
So we're a little ahead schedule on this, but we felt since we were talking about revolving accounts, we might just move forward and get moving on the revolving accounts. We hope that's okay with you. So Jim was just going to present the revolving accounts.
Stole my first sentence. We are much
Slow down.
It was Jim's idea, not
more
mine.
recent. We're much more recent than we usually are. So I'll lead with the fact that the reason that there's not much of a, or the reason we are able to do it now is we're not making many changes. As a matter of fact, we're not making any changes with regards to fees, which is always a good thing. So here's the list of the revolving budgets. You have the actual budgets included in the packet that show the line items associated with these, but you can see that from FY16 to FY17, there's not a lot of changes. We, for the most part, spend what comes in. So with regards to athletics, we anticipate a slight increase in fees coming in, and with those extra athletes, we have some added expenses, which will be covered by the added revenues. Transportation, we do anticipate an increase there. We have seen an increase in ridership. And again, with the ridership comes that additional expenses, and the additional revenue will cover those. Preschool, we don't anticipate any changes. They are tracking right about the same this year as they did last year, so we're keeping that the same. Community programs, you'll see, when you look at the budgets, that we no longer have the modular payment that we had for 5 years. So what they'll be able to now do is start to build up that reserve. We don't, for a enterprise fund, the recommendation, and we've talked about this before, is that you have about 3 months of operating costs as a surplus. We haven't had that for a long time in any of our funds, but we really don't need it in anything other than community programs and food services. The others, we pretty much spend whatever comes in. So community programs, because of the debt that it had to pay, actually we increased for the previous couple of years the user fees to make sure we were able to cover that. At this point, it will allow us to add about $30,000 to our balance if we keep the fees the way they are and no longer have that debt. So I would anticipate with almost $1.2 million in expenses that you'd want to have on hand $250,000 to $300,000 as your end of year balance. So we would slowly get there, but I wouldn't increase fees to get there, and I certainly would not recommend that we go back to what we were at 2 or 3 years ago, and the main reason being that we're only slowly building the surplus, and the fact that we are in the bottom 10% when you compare us to other districts with regards to our user fees.
For comparable programs.
Yes, right.
Are you talking mostly about after-school and before-school programs?
Community programs, exactly. Rick Galante does a tremendous job with that program, is always adding programs and running them efficiently so that we don't have to charge a lot, but they cover the expenses.
What was the payment for the modulars per year?
60s. It changed a little bit each year, but it was 60-something thousand each year. Yeah.
Okay. And that pays off in 2018 or 2017?
This year is the last payment. So next year we will not make a payment. He had been, if you recall, when this started, he had a surplus of in excess of $400,000. That got drawn down, so we were actually drawing from it each year, and then this coming year we'll actually be able to start to add back to it. Custodial overtime is one of those that the money that comes in to cover for custodial overtime pays for it. Same with rental fees and all the others except for food services. And again, Erica does a tremendous job with that program, making sure that the expenses are going to be covered. She saves us a ton in expenses with how she manages it, and we will add again a small amount to her balance.
And I assume at some point she'll come and give us the usual presentation and we can talk about it.
Exactly. Yep. So, and here's the summary. Athletics, no significant changes. Transportation, the increased ridership would be covered with the existing fee structure. Community programs, we finished this year paying the modular debt, so now we'll be able to add to our balance. And food services, we're projecting adding $50,000. So it would bring us to about $100,000 at the end of this year, where we should have about $300,000 in food services. And of all of our revolving accounts, that's the one that you would want to have the recommended 1/3.
Food service.
The recommended.
So, I'm sorry, where do we see the carry forward of the several $100,000? I don't see it in the expense revenue difference.
Of several $100,000?
You said there's a reserve moving into 2016 for community programs. Did I hear you right or no?
No. I was saying that we've been drawing down in this budget for FY17. We project a surplus of $30,000 that we would then be adding to the balance.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Yep. And then following that are just the budget you've received, which have the detail to those same numbers. And this is the first reading, so if there are any questions that occur to you, send them my way, and we can provide them at the next meeting. And there's no rush for approval of these.
Okay.
We can do it at any subsequent meeting from here.
Do we have to approve because there's no change in fees?
The school committee has to approve each year the revolving account budgets.
It's not
Because-
included in the regular, that's
Right.
Correct. And what happens is, for instance, if one of those accounts is kind of a pass-through, if we anticipate 70,000 in custodial overtime, but we end up having a lot more activity and get 80,000, I couldn't spend the extra 10,000 until I got approval from the school committee to change it from 70 to 80.
Okay, great. Any questions? Great, moving on.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you very much, Jim. Last item for the new business is a review of the district at a glance.
So we spoke about this last time, and the amazing Bev Zagari just kind of took it on her own accord and created a district at a glance. The principals have looked at it. We've made some changes since I first sent it to you, but it's now available for anyone to look at. And the idea is actually that this would not be a static document, that actually Mike Grant is actually in the process of redoing our websites and making them Google Forms, I believe. Google something. Google Sites. I always get Google something. So this would actually be a page on our website, which would be a district at the glance, so that like if there's one place you want to go to, you could get everything about the district. So this is basically the text of what it would be. We have a little thing on each of our schools, overview of the district, anything on each of our schools, including Scarlet Night and community programs. You can see on the right, there would be a link to my monthly newsletters, my Twitter feed. If you would click on district reports, Mr. Mealy, I'm pretty excited about this one. What we would do is we would actually have a place where every major report that is given to all of you that we think people would be interested in would be up there. So these are the reports from this year, the entry report, the technology report, the MCAS presentation. So as we go through the year, this would be a repository of any report that someone could easily find.
We wouldn't have to fish around in the
Yeah, so the idea was right here is, you can see kind of, these are the main things I've presented so far this year.
Mm-hmm.
So I was excited about that.
That's it.
That's page one.
But then if you also go back, you'll see district data actually links you to DART, so you can go right to the, we don't need to do that, but you go to DESC and get whatever pieces of information you want. And then you'll see that at the high school, then you would link to the actual, on the left, the different websites for each of the schools. So it felt like it was a place we could kind of start for everyone.
Yeah. No,
It's definitely
good. My only comment would be, having gone through this a little bit, is I think a lot of the DESE data, is good. I do think we have to maybe help massage it a little bit, because some of it's pretty arcane, so we might need to just help people try to...
Yeah, we could also put some of our own.
Yeah. And just, and again, we can make suggestions and give you feedback, and then...
Yeah, anything that you would like.
And I think this does solve the challenge of, we do want to bring a single point of contact for the things that are happening here, but not become, a burden to, updating PowerPoints.
Does this seem like we met that requirement?
Yeah, and I think the thing is, then you have like a basic that each year you just update.
Yeah. But this would not be burdensome, we don't think.
No, I mean, not at all.
Okay.
And I think the good thing about this is there's a lot of links, so it's live. So when you go on in September, it's actually going to be different than when you go on in January.
And I'm sure you will do a good job at advertising this to the community, so people get in the habit of going here to look for the report or whatever, right?
Yeah. And also, if people are interested in our district, this is a good starting place.
Absolutely. Great.
So I think this makes demonstrable progress to our school committee goal, and
Yes.
so we can hopefully close that out shortly.
Yeah, I think this successfully completes that.
Okay, great. Excellent. Any other comments or questions on review at a glance?
Thank you, Bev.
Yes, thank you for helping us navigate the data warehouse.
Now she doesn't have to do anything, so that's good.
Great. So
That was motivation for
Don't go that excited.
Yeah, Bev, don't get that excited. Don't spill your wine, you're good.
Okay, so I think that completes our new business for the evening. I'd like to open up for public comment, if there is any public comment after the conclusion of this discussion.
Yeah, I just have one comment question. Sorry.
Please introduce yourself and welcome.
Absolutely. Sorry. Christy Hale, 45 Lacey. I was just trying to type this up so I keep my thoughts straight. I just wanted to say thanks to Mr. Gilligan for sending out the reminder today for families to take a look at the DESE sites for the report cards. I had looked at all of the data for Sargent earlier this school year when it got released. I have kids who've been taking MCAS for years, and while I realize it's only one data point, and that's all we hear every time it's been an issue where Sargent parents have been concerned about what our data points look like. Looking at the different report cards for the different schools, it is still concerning what Sargent's numbers show up as. Looking at Dr. Price's report where she did her administrative walkthroughs in the buildings, I noticed tonight that you said Atkinson was focused on their higher order thinking skills and rigor and relevance, and that their high needs population on the actual report card this last MCAS cycle actually came up to 84, with their overall population being at 73. And I noticed through the walkthrough that Sargent's main focus is to really take a look at the students on IEPs in grades 3, 4, and 5 and develop, some of the better practices around that, which is great, and I think that's awesome. But while the high needs population, according to the DESE website, was around 64, our overall population at Sargent is 66. So we're still falling way short in finding solutions for all of our kids. And based on the presentations that I saw with principals make before with what their goals were, it seems that that's sort of in line with focusing on those specific slices of the student population. And I'm just very concerned that we're shortchanging possibly our overall population, or that maybe if we're focusing on that one slice of our population, we're hoping that it will bring everything up. But given that we've seen these struggles year over year over year with our students at Sargent, I'm hopeful and hoping that there's even more of a goal or plan in place to kind of step it up to help all of our kids, because it's nothing that I feel like as a parent at Sargent I've really seen clearly expressed. And I'm hopeful that maybe that will come out in the next when the next group of principals come and present.
So I want to be clear that the walkthrough focused on special education, because special education, if you look at that data we presented, was of significant concern at the Sargent Elementary School. But that doesn't mean we haven't been focusing on other things. So let me just give you some examples. So Karen Leahy's been doing this incredible thing for Math Elites, which she has been doing, integrating math into the PE classes at Sargent. And the reason we've been doing that is actually to give teams of teachers time to collaborate. So they take the entire third grade, the entire fourth grade, the entire fifth grade. And that is one thing that Sargent has not been doing on a consistent basis when we have seen that that has been happening at every other elementary school. And as we've seen the progress. So I will tell you that the goal is not just a subgroup of kids, it's overall. I've also been very clear with Dr. Foster and with the community that when you look at our schools, Sargent is not performing at the level that it should. Sargent should be a level 1 school, given the demographics. And I have made that very clear. And you don't become a level 1 school if you're just focusing on subgroups. You become a level 1 school when all kids increase and improve. And so I absolutely agree with everything that you said, and it's a concern to me. I'm just looking at the data. Sargent, given the demographics of Franklin, Sargent, and Kittredge, they should be performing at the same level, and they're not. Franklin and Kittredge are both level 1 schools. Sargent is a level 2 school. And so it's something we've talked quite a bit about. And so when we look at just the issue of practice, I would also say to you that the Atkinson was looking at higher order thinking. Half of us were looking at that. The other half of us were looking at the intervention blocks. So we are doing both and, because a good district does both and.
That's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Natalie Howard, 417 Johnson Street. I just wanted to say hello, and I wanted to take this opportunity to say that this time of year has traditionally been a very stressful time, I think, for many parents as we wonder about the budget and what potentially might be cut and what our children might lose out on. And I have to say that this year has been very refreshing, and I want to just take this opportunity to thank Dr. Price and everyone here. Just again for the enthusiasm, for the optimism, for the wonderful communication, for the creative problem solving around the budget, for the collaborative work with the town, for bringing together so many wonderful solutions to keep things in place for our students, for it seems like instead of things being cut this year, things are being added, which is just so, it's just wonderful. And I think it's just very exciting. And I'm excited about the addition of a librarian, even though it's part-time. It's like, oh, we'll take it. I'm excited about adding, foreign language, even it's like little steps. Again, we'll take it. There's just so many exciting things happening. And so I just wanted to say thanks, and I think it's great. And keep up the energy. She's not going to get burnt out. She's young. She's got it all going on. So this is great. So thanks very much. And
Thanks for your continued support.
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you, Ms. Howard. Any other comments? Great, hearing none. School committee comments? Mr. Teresi? No. Great, so with that, our next meeting is... I'm sorry.
You blew right by him, I mean.
I made eye contact.
I'm happy about that.
I made eye contact.
You're calling it out. Well, you called me up by name, but...
Went around the horn. So, one moment, please. Our next meeting is February 4th, where we will be voting our budget, so please stay tuned for that. And hearing nothing else, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded? Second. All right, we're all in favor, say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.